Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. Hello, welcome back to Big LEZ'S League, an all rugby league experience. I'm your host, Big Les. We're going to get stuck into our top players to look out for this year in SuperCoach for another episode of Plebs Playbook. We're going to look at a bunch of players under 550k. We'll get the prices on the screen here as well for each of those players as we go through them. But coming at you from a bit more of an NRL perspective, going to be talking about the players that I'll be looking out for. Some young guys coming through that are cheap. Some guys that have been out with injury that have, as a result of that, have been a little bit cheaper that should bounce back this year and have some good seasons. Some players that you should just take advantage of the prices that they are. There's some players in there that I didn't expect to be under that 550k price range, but I think could really be a great little purchase as well, especially if you're getting some guns in other positions. Just some guys to look out for if you're depending on how you're building your team for different positions, cheapies that are very, very good watches. We're also going to come at you with a few guys to watch. Now, obviously, again, those guys are, within that 210 to 550 bracket in terms of price, but just guys that, maybe they won't start the year, or maybe they'll start the year on the bench, but could work their way into starting roles and obviously some good SuperCoach scores as well. So we'll get stuck into that in a second, but firstly, just want to remind you guys that on the 22nd of February, I'll be playing in the Sports Shed TV charity match. Definitely a day that you guys don't want to miss. 22nd of February, Ringrose Park. Myself, a bunch of your other favourite content creators, Sav, who we do the podcast with for SuperCoach, he'll be in there. We also have Brad Tuckerangi returning for us as well. He'll be playing 5'8" in that charity match too. So you've got some ex-players in there, a player for the other team that we can't really announce yet, but it's going to be a really, really good day. Your favourite content creators returning, Random Stats Guy, Flaxy as well for those Panthers supporters. You've got plenty of really, really cool content creators in there. The team lists are on the Sports Shed TV charity match Instagram, and the link is in their description as well. We'll put it in the description below for you guys to purchase your tickets. It's only $15. You can buy the tickets, you can buy the pay-per-view, and it goes towards the Marquis Foundation, who I'm playing for, or the Goanna Academy, Greg Inglis's charity there as well for the other team. So buy your tickets, get down to the day if you're around the area, or even if you're not, make the trip. It is definitely worth it, especially for the young ones. There's plenty of games, food trucks, all that sort of stuff there as well. So buy your tickets, make sure you don't miss out. It is going to be an awesome day. Let's get stuck into your SuperCoach. We're not going to share our screen and look at the SuperCoach side because I've already done quite a few team reveals, but what we are going to do is I'm just going to go through a little list that I've got up here. I'm not going to read out player prices. As I said, those are going to come up on screen, but all of these guys are within the 210k to 550k price range. We're going to start off in the fullback position. One that I'm really keen on and I could make a bit of a switch to, even from a guy like Keano Kinney, who a lot of people are raving about and starting the year with for the Gold Coast Titans. He's also on this list, but the guy that I'm a little bit keen on and who I could jump over to is Jai Gray. Obviously, at the South Sydney Rabbitohs, I am very keen to see how much ball he gets as well with South Sydney, but he does take that fullback position. He was outstanding last year. Not sure with the SuperCoach scores, how that transition, how that looked last year. I'm sure that he had some pretty good scores towards the back end of the year, especially in those games with his defensive efforts and obviously the tackle bust, the 350 metres a game. He gets through a ton of work and he differs from Latrell Mitchell in that sort of way. He'll get through a ton of work at fullback. He'll take those tough carries on play 1s and 2s. He's going to get through all the hard yards and then the support play as well. Defensively, he's going to make his tackles. He's going to make his reads. He is very, very involved in attacking sets. Even when you got guys like Latrell there who obviously want to take the ball in the big moments from centre. You've got, obviously, Dave Fafita, you've got Cody Walker, you've got all these stars in this team. Jai Gray is going to be heavily involved. I think that you'll see plenty of involvement from Jai Gray. I think at his price, he is too good to overlook. I think he's almost potentially a better option from Keano Kinney, depending on, obviously, how the Titans start the year. South might have the better start because they've got the better team. The only watch, obviously, is the 7 jersey out South Sydney, and if they can get that right. But I just feel like South Sydney have too good of a team to not start the year well. And they started well last year as well. You've got to remember they had a really good start to last year. So I think that Jai Gray could potentially become a better option to Keano Kinney, depending on what we see from the trials and obviously injuries to come and whatnot. But Jai Gray is definitely a watch for me. Keano Kinney's obviously the next guy. Gold Coast Titans. The watch for me, I guess, is the forward pack. And if they can get enough momentum for this attacking side to really flourish, you've got 2 fullbacks in the halves as well. How is that going to work? Keanu Kinney, how is he going to link up with these other fullbacks as well? It's going to be a really interesting watch, especially with a new coach in, new style of play. Keanu Kinney, I'm very excited. I know that he's got the potential to get some really good SuperCoach scores, similar to Jai Gray, the smaller body, but gets through a ton of work, takes those tough play 1 and 2 carries, very, very involved in attacking sets. But how involved is he going to get with both AJ Brimson and Jaden Campbell, who are two very good attacking players in the halves as well? How do they balance that? Is there too many chefs in the kitchen? And not even chefs in the kitchen, just too many magicians and too many off-the-cuff style of players in the spine. How is that all going to be balanced out? That's going to be the watch for me at the Gold Coast Titans, which is sort of why I'm really starting to think, maybe is Jai Gray a bit of a better option there. But I think that if you were to go with either one of these two, I wouldn't fray away from it at all. I think they're both very, very good options. The one from the Melbourne Storm, obviously, Su'Afa'alongo is a guy that's on a few people's lips. A few people are bringing him in early. I probably wouldn't. I think he's more of a wait and see for me. I just think that it's very risky, especially with this whole Zach Lomax thing looming around. I personally think there's a big chance Lomax does come in and play fullback. Obviously, he wants to play centre, and that's the reason that he left St. George, was obviously to go to another club and play in the centres. But I do think that there is a real chance that we see Zach Lomax, who's going to go over there and be on big money at the Melbourne Storm, potentially play in that fullback position. So I'm sort of a bit of standoffish. I'm also just standoffish because, Su'Afa'alongo is good. He's got try-scoring ability. Every game almost that he came in for the Melbourne Storm, even if it was on the wing, he was scoring tries. He was getting heavily involved. He was getting decent SuperCoach scores, even from the wing. I just am a little bit standoffish. I just feel like there's a little bit more job security in your Greys and Keanu Kinneys. And I just want to wait and see how Fa'alongo starts the year, if there is a little bit of Chevy Stewart about him. Like, is it going to be a little bit of a slow start? Chevy Stewart, obviously, they didn't give too many opportunities to. He sort of came in at the start of the year and, didn't really start well, and so they moved into a different direction. Su'Afa'alongo, I think, for me, has the highest ceiling to Chevy Stewart, and I think he's already been proven in first grade to have good performances too, which sort of puts him a little bit apart from a Chevy Stewart. But I just think that there's a lot of pressure on Su'Afa'alongo's shoulders at the moment, because you're replacing a Clive Churchill medalist, you're replacing a really high-quality fullback in Ryan Pappenhausen. Granted, he's been injured for a while, and they've had Nick Meaney there at stages as well. But you're replacing a pretty good fullback. You're going to be the main guy on that side. There is a little bit of pressure there. So, and I also think as well, they've got Manaia Wateri as well from at Melbourne, who is currently training a little bit at fullback too. He's very, very good. He's almost a bit of a smoky to crack his way into that side, especially around the Origin period. I think he's almost a little bit of a Tyrone Wishart clone in the fact that he can play a ton of positions and play them at a high quality, Manaia Wateri. So he'll be a little bit of a watch too around this Melbourne fullback situation. I think that Su'Afa'alongo definitely starts the year at fullback, but there are a few guys that will be poking their noses, especially if Lomax walks into the building. That conversation starts of, should Lomax on a big money at the Melbourne Storm, with how they've divvied up their cap in the past, be playing in the fullback position, and does he play in the fullback position to start the year at the Melbourne Storm if he does go there? So Fa'alongo, for me, I'm just going to wait and see how that all plays out. I want to see him string a really good couple of games together, get some decent scores. I'm almost happy for him to have a little bit of an increase in price before I jump on him, because I just want to see if it works. I guess the watch for us is going to be Callum Ponga. Callum Ponga, really good price this year. Priced off the fact that he had a couple of injuries last year and didn't play too many games. I think that the price is going to be very, very good. The only thing is he hasn't trained for majority of, if not all of the preseason. He's been in the moon boot for majority of the time. I think he's been in with the rehab group, and he's, I think, started to run a little bit and started to get back with those guys, but he's too risky of a play for me. If he's still in a moon boot and hasn't really trained for the preseason, I'm not going to go anywhere near Callum Ponga. I think you're more suited to go for a guy like Tom Trbojevic, who's in and around the 600s. It's only about 100k more. And, I even with Tom Trbojevic, who himself has had a ton of injuries, I just have more confidence that he's going to start the year better. He's trained for the preseason. Haven't heard too many, complaints regarding injury for him during the preseason as well. So I'm a lot more comfortable going in that direction than I am with a Callum Ponga. But I think Ponga at the price, especially if he gets some time in the trials and he plays very, very well, and we watch him in Vegas and he does well, he could be a guy we bring in. But it will definitely be a wait and see, in my opinion. Let's move to centre wing. I want to start off with Bailey Simonson, who's in my team. He's in and around the 400. I think he's 417k off memory. Really, really good purchase, in my opinion. I just feel like Bailey Simonson, you're going to get some good footy out of him. He's taking Lomax's spot next to Moses. I think that's a perfect spot for SuperCoach. He's going to be scoring plenty of tries. They love going down that right corridor as well, especially on play 3s and 4s if they want to go for a little bit of a wander down the sideline. Look, Moses wants to run, break the line, tip on to a Simonson or even to a back rower on the inside. Simonson's going to be scoring tries nevertheless. Off kicks as well. You've got two really good high-quality kickers in Pezzett, but also in Moses there. Simonson's going to be scoring rugby league tries. He's going to be heavily involved. He's really, really good with his play 1 and 2 carries out of his own end as well. His skill set is up there with Lomax as well. Other than the kicking, obviously, his skill set and athleticism is right up there with Zach Lomax. So I rate him very, very highly. I think there have been a few talks of injuries in the preseason, and I might pivot if that is the case, but I love him at his price. I think he'll start the year very, very well if injury-free. He's definitely a watch in my opinion. Sam Stonestreet's obviously the other one there. He's at 496, I want to say. Again, I'm just guessing. We're not really going to go too deep into the prices, so I'll probably stop guessing. But he's at a good price nevertheless. And I think obviously coming in for Ronaldo Mulatalo, who's injured at the moment, I think he's definitely a watch. I think he's a guy that you will definitely look to bring in to start the year at least. I think he's a really good option, and he's at that sort of medium price. He'll gain enough money by the midpoint of the year when Ronaldo does come back into the team, where you can pivot to someone else and you can pivot to a high-quality outside back as well. You don't have to pivot to someone in a similar price range. I think Sam Stonestreet's going to gain enough cash, scoring tries, getting good scores in SuperCoach, where you can pivot to a good outside back once Ronaldo Mulatalo comes back into this side. I do think as well with the contract situation of Sione Katoa and Jesse Ramian as well, these guys both have contract at the end of the year, unsigned currently as well. I think there's a real opportunity that Sam Stonestreet takes one of those spots. Now, I'm not saying he plays centre. I think there's even an opportunity for Ronaldo Mulatalo to move into the centres. I think he's got enough of a skill set, passing game, defensively. I think his skill set could suit centre well if they want to pivot and go in a different direction, if they want to rebuild going into the following season. Even regardless, I think he could just go in straight away for Sione Katoa, depending on his form, to start the year as well. So, and obviously what they want to do with him contract-wise, if they want to move him on at the end of the year, he goes to a Perth Bears or something like that. Stonestreet, I think there's an opportunity he stays in first grade. If he does start the year very, very well, I think they'll probably not have a choice if he does come out and absolutely blows it away. So Stonestreet for me is a watch. I think that I'm going to have him in my side to start the year. And then obviously once Mulatalo comes back, really assess that situation. Is he going to still play first grade? Is he not? And then make a choice to pivot or not to pivot from there. Hamasi Makasini, I think he does play instead of Jarrell Skelton. I just think with the injuries around Skelton, and just with what I'm hearing with Makasini from the preseason, just the eye test looking very fit, I think he does start left wing. We'll find out in the trials. But I think he'll be a huge watch. I think their first game for the preseason is against the Roosters. So I'm very excited to see Makasini. I think that he will definitely be a guy to keep an eye on as we head into the trials. Is he going to take that left wing spot? I think he certainly will. Guys to sort of watch out for, Stretch Graham. I think that Campbell Graham is definitely a watch. I almost feel like he's in a couple of SuperCoach sides, just with the little bits and pieces that I've seen of other podcasts and whatnot. He's in quite a few teams, just from what I've seen. So I think that he is definitely a great option. I think, again, you talk about those play 1-2 carries, the hard work out of your own end, defensively one of the better outside backs in the competition, although we didn't see it last year with a bit of a weaker back line for South Sydney, and Stretch Graham had a really bad sternum issue. coming back, hopefully fully fit, ready to go. I think that he is definitely going to be a watch for SuperCoach. Defensively, very good. Play 1 or 2 carries out of the own end as well, playing on the wing. He'll be taking plenty of those carries. And then the try-scoring ability as well, pretty good in the air. Very tough as well. I think people forget just how good Stretch Graham can be at his absolute best. He's an Origin player at his absolute best. He'll be definitely a watch this year for sure. Another one is Manaia Wateri. I think that, there could be a spot in this back line. Nick Meaney's going to the Bears. Next year, if Lomax doesn't go to Melbourne, I think that Manaia Wateri is definitely a guy that could push his way at least to start the year into the centres. I think this guy is your long-term replacement for Cam Munster. I think he'll definitely take that spot once Munster retires. He is definitely a watch. So much potential. It's a really, really good purchase by the Melbourne Storm. And training very, very well. Training in a number of positions. Obviously can play fullback, centre and 5'8". I think he is the long-term replacement for Cam Munster, and I also think that he is a guy that you will see fill in the Origin period, whether that be at fullback, whether that be in the centres. He will definitely get an opportunity at some point in 2026. So he'll be a watch. And then I think as well, look at the Nick Meaney situation. He's leaving at the end of the year. Do they pivot and try and get a younger guy in? I don't think they will, but it's definitely a watch. And I think, at the price, similar to your I think he's around that $230K price range. Definitely one to keep an eye on throughout the year to come into the side, especially around the Origin period. A little bit of a cheapie there if he does force his way into the team. James Walsh from the North Queensland Cowboys is also my other watch there. He is dual position, second row, and also in the centre wing. He is around the $230K price range as well. I think he even might be in the 210s. Really, really good player. I think that he, obviously, coming into this year, is going to have a little bit of an injury and might take his time to get back into the side. But definitely going into, I guess, when he does come back, they don't generally run with a utility, the North Queensland Cowboys. He's a guy that can play a few different positions and fill in. He can play a lock, he can play back row, he can play centre. I guess there's a centre position open currently at the North Queensland Cowboys, pending, Zach Laibart, if he can fully come back following a couple of injuries last year and really lock down that spot. James Walsh is going to be a watch. You've got Tom Chester, who's done his MCL as well, so he's going to take his time getting back into this team. James Walsh, for me, is the big watch, and I think he can either fill in the centres, he can play in jersey 17. As I said, they don't generally run with a utility. I don't think they will going into this year either, because Reid Marnie's going to play 80 minutes at 9, in my opinion. James Walsh is that guy that could sneak into jersey 17. So he'll be definitely a watch once he comes back from injury. Very, very good player there. Shout out to him as well. I think he follows the podcast. Second row. This is going to be interesting. There are a few cheapies in second row that I will definitely be keeping an eye on. To start us off, I'm going to go ahead and just name the 2 Parramatta potential right back rowers, and that is Charlie Geimer or Kelma Tuolangi. I think there's value in both of these guys. I think they're both within the $550K price range. They're under that for sure. Charlie Geimer, I think, is in the 2s as well, so there's plenty of value there in Charlie Geimer. Kelma Tuolangi, obviously a little bit more expensive, but could potentially lock down that right back row spot. I was just really impressed with what I saw from Charlie Geimer, and again, big opportunity during the trials to lock down a spot there. I think at the price as well, if he does lock down a back row spot, he's going to be very, very attractive. I know that you've got a couple of other guys as well that are almost confirmed for spots going into this year as well. And again, it is going to be something we assess throughout the trials and make a decision heading into round 1. But Charlie Geimer will definitely be a watch for me during the trial period, and so too Kelma Tuolangi. I think that both of those guys are definite watches, definite ones to keep an eye on. Charlie Geimer is very, very good hole runner, good defensively. The game against Canberra for me stands out. Kelma Tuolangi, really good back end of the year. Those two will be fighting it out for the right back row spot at the Parramatta Eels. Hylam Maluki, I think he'll be the left back rower for the North Queensland Cowboys. I think he plays 80 minutes as well. Obviously coming back for injury, he's going to be one we sort of sit back and assess. But I really do like it. He's at 400 odd K. I think he's at a really good price. I think for an 80-minute back rower, it is an absolute steal if he does play that sort of role. Again, it is one to assess during the trials how he's coming back from those injuries. but I'm only hearing good things. So, he's a guy as well, like before the injury, we were talking about him as a bit of an origin smoky. There's no doubt that he is in that conversation going into this year as well. So Harlem Lukey definitely one to watch out for. Hamish Stewart over there at the Dragons, I think at his price as well, he's between the 4 and the 5s. I do like Hamish Stewart. I think he's a good option. He'll probably play close to 60-odd minutes at lock for the Dragons, just off the little bits and pieces that I've heard. Training very, very well, very, very fit. Looked good last year. Had some okay scores, but I think you'll see the minutes go up drastically for him, and he'll definitely be a guy that establishes himself a little bit more at second row for SuperCoach. He'll obviously go well in price. I think he's very similar to Cam Murray. If there's a comp there, I guess player-wise, I think he's very, very similar to Cam Murray, or at least will be playing a very similar role to Cam Murray, and could eventually sort of mold himself into that player arc. If I'm the Dragons, that's certainly what I'm looking to do, turning him into a Cam Murray, but also letting him find his own style in that as well. I do think naturally they're two very similar types of players. Decent defenders, smaller bodies at lock forward, but are just willing to get through the hard stuff and fight through the absolute dogfight of games. Morgan Knowles, hearing very, very good things about Morgan Knowles. He's obviously within the 4 to 500k range as well, fresh from the Super League, and obviously set to start at lock for the Dolphins. I think he's in between a watch and a really good option for me, because I just feel like, he could obviously come in, he starts at lock, he plays decent minutes. Plath and Donahue come back, and then he's sort of like, oh, shit, he's more of a benchy, plays 20 minutes a game, and then obviously Supercoach-wise sort of plummets. Not too sure what to think with Morgan Knowles. I almost think that he can lock down that 13 spot and they can move a couple of guys around. I think that Donahue might sort of lock down the 14 jersey. Plath, obviously, we know can play on the edge. He might lock down the left or right back row spots, depending on what they want to do. I think after last year, you've definitely got to play Lemuelu at left back row, so probably right back row potentially there for Max Plath if you want to fit him in somewhere, or even off the bench, depending on the size of your pack and what you want to do, because there's obviously guys like Gilbert and stuff like that who can play in that back row position. But Morgan Knowles, from what we saw from him from England, the little bits and pieces we've seen from him from England, and all the things I'm hearing out of the Dolphins, he's come over and he's blown everyone away. So he'll definitely be a watch there, Morgan Knowles. Atavalo Lasardi / Jack Hetherington. Both of those guys, definite watches. Jack Hetherington, especially with dual position tag on his back. If he does end up starting the year at back row, as a little bit of a smoky there, right back rower, Craig Bellamy getting the best out of him. He has a very, very high ceiling, in my opinion, as anyone would, young guys, especially under Craig Bellamy. Obviously a little bit older and a lot more NRL experience for Jack Hetherington, but I just feel like Craig Bellamy can get the absolute best out of him, and we could see some really decent scores from him, especially if he is starting. But I am hearing that Atavalo Lasardi is the current leader for that spot. Again, I want to wait and see the trials. I want to see both of these guys play that position, and then I'll make up my mind from there. At the moment, I'm leaning slightly towards Atavalo Lasardi, but I could definitely jump back on the Hetherington train if he does end up playing in that position and plays well there as well. Or even if he does, he is a bit of a benchy sort of front row forward and he does play okay minutes, maybe you do just consider him as that cheapie. You're still going to make money with him, so maybe he is a bit of an option there as well. Josh Patson apparently has locked down the right back row position there for the Titans. I'm hearing that both Klesser Haas and Chris Randall are playing middle this year for the Gold Coast. So it pretty much only leaves Josh Patson as the guy to lock down that role there at right back row. Very, very good option. He's in between the 3s and the 4s, I believe, in terms of price. So I think he's a very, very good option there. Haven't really seen too much of him Supercoach-wise, and he's only really played a little bits and pieces off the bench for the Gold Coast Titans so far, but one that Coach Josh Hannay is very high on, so definitely a bit of a watch. And then Cooper Bye as well. Same sort of deal there at the Gold Coast Titans. I think both of those guys will be watchers. I think by end of year, you'll see Cooper Bye start at 13 for them, with Tino moving into a bit more of a front row role. And that obviously takes a lot of stress off Tino as well, limits the risk of injury. He'll play big minutes still, but just not from that 13 sort of position with that pressure on his back. Cooper Bye suits that role a lot better, in my opinion. And I think we'll see him in that role too. Middle forward. There's a couple of guys here. There's definitely some watchers that not many people are talking about, but just some of the obvious ones we'll throw out straight away. Trey Mooney, obviously a bit of a watch in my opinion. More of a watch than a lock it in, just purely because of the fact that he could start the year on the bench. There is every opportunity that he starts the year on the bench. I think that people have sort of overhyped Trey Mooney a little bit, and I think he's going to be a great player, and I think he will probably start for them, whether it be front row or at lock by end of season. I just don't think he's going to come in, walk his way into this side with Tyson Frizzell, with Matt Croker, who is their mainstay at 13, and he's going to lock down that 13 position like a lot of people are saying he is. He's definitely a good price, even for a benchy, but I think he's a bit more of a wait and see for me. If he comes off the bench and kills it in the opening rounds, I'll probably pivot that way from a Paseka or a Flegler, especially if these guys start the year slow. But I am going to just wait and see. I actually think the trials will be a really good idea of where he's going to... If he kills it in the trials, he's going to start the front row, in my opinion. Purely because of the fact they don't have too many better options. So, Trey Mooney for me, he is a wait and see for the trials. We're obviously going to find out a little bit more this weekend. I think they are going to play in that first opening week of the trials. Could be wrong. But definitely a watch for me, in my opinion. All Blacks Tower. Definitely could get dual as well after the trials if he does start at in the back row, which I'm hearing by all reports. He's actually going to take Brendan Piakora's spot, who is going to take his time getting back into the team. So that's obviously going to be a little bit of a wait and see for sure. Obviously, other guys, they need to be fighting for that spot. You've got your Jack Gajewskis, who's already in that back row position. And it started the year last year as well. People forget, over Brendan Piakora, who I think started the year off the bench or not even in the side. Just trying to think of other guys that could get that back row spot. I think it is more of a... I mean, there is Jaden Hunt, but I prefer him in the middle. I think it's going to be between Gajewski and All Blacks Tower. And I think All Blacks Tower will win that spot too. So he's definitely the guy that I am keen on. But I sort of want to wait until he gets dual. If he gets dual, I'll hop on it straight away. Taniela Paseka. He's a guy a lot of people are talking about. I am 50-50. I just feel like we've been waiting so long for him to, find confidence in his body. Or a big Taniela Paseka and have some big scores and have some big games in SuperCoach. I think we are looking at the price for Taniela Paseka. It's very, very good. I've got him in my team at the moment. We're looking at the price and we're going, it is just sort of too good to throw up for a starting front rower. I tend to agree. He's probably going to be the guy that I pivot if he doesn't start well early to a Trey Mooney. I'm going to go to a Trey Mooney from Taniela Paseka if he doesn't start well. But I'm going to take the risk on him. I just feel like if Manly are going to be a successful team this year, if they are going to make finals for their coach, obviously coach being under pressure in Anthony Seibold, I do think that Paseka needs a big year, and I'm just banking on the fact that he has one. Flegler, they're very even for risks for me. Paseka's also coming off the back of an injury, but Flegler, serious injury. Out of the game for 2 years. We are taking advantage of the price. We're assuming he starts. I do think, similar to Trey Mooney, there's a real chance he does start the year on the bench. But I think too good of a price to throw up for what is an Origin grade front rower at his absolute best. If he can get back to his best, he's training very well at the moment, but if he can get back to that absolute best, he's definitely a guy that I'll be very happy to have in my team. He's in there at the moment with Paseka as my two backup front rowers. Jesse Calhoun is the other one, dual position as well, second row, front row forward. Going to be starting at 13 for the Cronulla Sharks. Very, very good option there. One to watch, in my opinion, will be Sam McIntyre. Now, we're looking at a pack for the North Queensland Cowboys that can be very hot and cold. Defensively, they've had their issues, but the guy that stood out for me last year is Sam McIntyre. I feel like he is a guy that could lock down the 13 jersey and do very well for North Queensland in a side that struggles. Even if they don't struggle as well, that probably entices to me to him a little bit more. I think that he's definitely a chance of locking down the 13 jersey. I think he's a huge watch this year. He's going to be a guy that not too many people are talking about as a backup option, and he is in that a decent price range as well. I think he's even in between the 2s and the 3s at the moment. Could be wrong, but definitely a watch for me, Sam McIntyre. Let's move to halfback. very, very obvious ones for me. Stand out straight away is Daniel Atkinson. Obviously, at 235 odd K, starting halfback. Depending on how much ball he gets is going to be an interesting watch, but I just feel like for a starting halfback, it is too good of a price to ignore. Daniel Atkinson's in my side. I think he's going to be in a lot of other sides. Very, very confident in him. Way more confident in Atkinson than I am in Sanders or Black, because it could go either way. Daniel Atkinson, for me, is a must-have to start the year. Sanders and Black, as I said, I've got a little confidence in either of them. To be fair, similar sort of price ranges to an Atkinson, but either one of them could take that jersey. Sanders probably has the first couple of games, obviously with Black having a bit of an injury as well, to sort of prove himself, but Black could come into that side, and I guess you could just go from one to the other trading-wise, but why waste that trade? We can just have Atkinson. He's probably going to keep that jersey, even if he does move to a 6 role or whatever they want to do with him throughout the year. There's more job security there for me. In my opinion, there could be some higher scores, potentially with a really good fast-moving Canberra side. I also think, too, with the Canberra halves, Ethan Strange, for me, is going to take a lot more control of the footy, which sort of limits their involvement, too, for Black and for Sanders. So that's me without seeing a ball being kicked. I could be totally wrong about that, and Sanders might come out and kill it, but I just don't see that happening. And I guess the other ones to watch out for, Jaden Sullivan, who's at dual position there, 5'8" halfback, hearing good things, hearing that he could start the year over Glover now as well, with Jamie Humphrey suspended for the opening game or so. So Jaden Sullivan's definitely a watch. Jonah Glover, obviously a watch there as well if you want to go for cheapy halfbacks. I'd definitely take Daniel Atkinson over any of those guys any day of the week, though. Definitely for me a must-have. 5'8". Similar to our man Daniel Atkinson, I think same goes for Jonah Pezzett. Must have, starting 5'8" in a very good Parramatta outfit. They're going to start the year well, in my opinion. Very, very good price, 235 odd K. I just think you've got to go and take the risk, bite the bullet. I think Pezzett's in for a massive year as well. I think that him and Moses will get a lion's share of the ball, take a little bit of pressure off Moses, especially on last tackle. It also unlocks Moses as well. Less pressure on him kicking-wise with the foot injuries. It's going to be perfect. Pezzett for me, must have as your backup halves. Atkinson, Pezzett, backup halves. It is perfect. It sets you up well to have some decent halves as well to start the year. Then Cody Walker's obviously there as well. $399K. I love Cody Walker as an option. I think that he is very, very good. I think that at the price, in that dangerous left edge for South Sydney, it is definitely a guy that I would be looking at. He's in my team at the moment. And then obviously if it doesn't go well, if it does go to shit, we can pivot a little bit as well. We've got Nico Hines currently as our flex, so we can obviously trade him to another fullback and then go to Munster if the Walker move doesn't go too well. One that I do like, similar sort of price, I think from memory, $417K, is Braden Trindle. Really, really like Braden Trindle as an option. I think that in that Cronulla Sharks team, only going to get better. No changes, which, a lot of people look as a negative. I look at it as a positive. The fact that there's not much changing in that outfit going into this year, probably other than Stone Street for the start of the year at least. But, by end of year, nothing's really changed. They only get to work on that halves pairing more. I feel like by the end of the year, and especially in that last game against Melbourne, they worked things out. They looked very dangerous. Defensively, a really good outfit. Sharks are going to go well. I think Trindle, while he doesn't have the best track record in Supercoach, is definitely a watch in my opinion. The other watch is Samari Martin. Now, if he does take that halfback jersey to start the year with the experience, Tanner Boyd maybe starts the year in New South Wales Cup. Definitely a watch for me. Tanner Boyd is a watch as well. Tamari Martin, I think, is a real smoky watch to take the halfback jersey as well. They're at the Warriors. I think he's a really good price as well. So definitely one to keep an eye on there, Tamari Martin. And then last off, lucky last, we'll move to the hooker position. Reid Marnie's the obvious one for me. Really good price as well for an 80-minute hooker, which I think he will be. He's definitely a really good price. If Sonny Luke does take that 14 jersey, and I do think it's a pretty low chance of that happening, but if he does take that 14 jersey there, then I probably will look to go another direction. And that other direction looks the way of probably Reece Robertson. I feel like at 417K, it's not too much of a price difference to a Reece Robertson. To a Reed Marnie. But what you're going to get with Reece Robertson, playing in a Roosters side, lots of go forward, lots of strike. He's going to be perfect for them. It's the first natural hooker that they've had at the club, I guess, since Jake Friend, Sam Verrills, but Jake Friend, probably one of the better hookers that they've had in the club in a very long time. Reece Robertson, New South Wales hooker, coming into that team, very good attacking side. I think I see a lot of upside there. That's probably the way that I'd be looking, depending on if we do see the Reed Marnie move fall through. So that's the way that I'm going to go. If Reed Marnie does, obviously there is signs that we'll see Sonny Luke play and he doesn't get the full 80 minutes. It's not a great looking Cowboy side anyway. If Reed Marnie isn't playing 80 minutes, there's not too much upside there for the price, in my opinion. So I'd probably be going to a Reece Robertson, who I think will be playing a lot bigger minutes in that Roosters team as well. And, will probably attract more points. Even if he is playing 65, 70 minutes, Reece Robertson, we see Connor Watson move into that hooker role a little bit. I do think that there's a lot more attacking upside in that team. He's going to be setting up more opportunities. There's going to be more points there, in my opinion. It's a much better side than what the Cowboys are this year. And then just some other names to throw your way too in the hooker position. Sandon Smith's one, who's dual position, obviously going to be the starting halfback most likely at the Knights. It's more of a wait and see for the trials. Him and Fletcher Sharp are going to be battling it out for a half spot, it sounds like, to partner up with Dylan Brown. It's going to be the deciding factor as to whether Dylan Brown is a 7 or a 6 going into next year, or going into this year, I should say. So obviously going into this weekend, we'll sort of get that a little bit of an idea. And then some other guys as well to throw your way. Brandon Smith, obviously one. He's in the 200s. I mean, too good for the price. He's going to be playing big minutes. He'll be playing a little bit of hooker, a little bit of middle forward. Really, really, really good option as well if you want a cheapie there. One that I would like to see, and again, it's going to be really dependent on the trials and what we get there, is Mitch Kenny. I really do like Mitch Kenny. He's going to be in that 400 to 300 bracket as well. And the thing I like about Mitch Kenny the most is the fact that we'll probably see him potentially get 80 minutes. And again, it's going to really depend on the trials. But if they do run with a Jack Cole or someone else at 14 and they don't opt to go with Freddie Lussick, which is a little big if, but if they don't opt to go with a Freddie Lussick, I think Mitch Kenny's a really good option. You know what you're going to get from Mitch Kenny week in, week out. He's probably a decent backup option, if not your starting option, if you want to pivot to him and then pivot to someone more expensive like your Grants or someone else like that as well, who's got high upside, your Blake Bralleys, things like that. Mitch Kenny, for me, I think is a really good option. I think especially around the origin period as well, pending he doesn't get selected, he's going to be a really good option too. So he's going to be a wait and see for me, depending on if they do opt to go with a Freddie Lussick in that 14 jersey and they go with a spare hooker, or whether Mitch Kenny does opt to play 80 minutes, maybe they get another forward on the bench, or they get someone else who's going to be playing a bit more of a roaming sort of role, similar to what they did with Dane Laurie a little bit last year. That's going to be a big watch for me. That's going to be very exciting. And that wraps up our Cheapies podcast. Everyone does a Cheapie Bible and things like that. I'm purely coming at you more so from an NRL perspective. What am I seeing? What am I hearing from the trials and obviously leading into the trials and players locking down positions, stuff like that. If you did like this podcast, make sure you go ahead and subscribe. Plenty more Plebs Playbook coming at you this year. Still deciding if it's going to be a weekly podcast or not. I think during the trials is the perfect opportunity to sort of go through players, what the side's looking like, team reveals. Our team reveal will be linked around here or around here. I don't know which side it's going to pop up on, but it's going to be on either one of these sides. So click on that video next. Make sure you subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next one.